COVID concerns in school districts across the country are now leading to dangerous situations for school board members. They're worried for their own safety after an increasing number of threats like these.
We know who you are. We know who you are. You will never be allowed in public again.
You mask your child, you're a child abuser.
That's my choice.
And I'm gonna come for everybody that comes at my kid with this stupid, ridiculous mandate.
Violence across the United States over mask mandate. While CNN and other media are calling the shots, the anti-vaccine movement is growing bigger by the day. This is war. This is no fiction. This is reality. And this is the original Gangster Power Hour podcast. The clock is ticking and Nancy Pelosi is late. Big Brother is watching you and Uncle Joe Biden is saying, show me your proof of vaccination or no treat for Halloween. People are disgusted and fed up. October will be a month to remember that we are most definitely at war. Hey, happy to be here with you guys live for another edition of the original Gangster Power Hour podcast. It's been a fast week. Ever since we talked, the dice are rolling and everything is on the line. We're talking about the infrastructure bill. Did I say that right? Maybe not, but the clock is ticking and Pelosi is nowhere to be seen. Of course, we're going to talk about the Big Five. The Big Five, I'm talking about the 5 major TV network in the United States. And the Big Five right now is at risk. Their future, the Big Five future is at risk. They need to convince the viewers. They need to convince you guys that they are worthy of you watching their propaganda. Let's see it right. I don't want to be. I don't want to offend anybody out there that could be offended by me saying something more drastic. Of course, we're going to talk about who are the Big Five. We're going to lay the ground to understand what's going on, the commotion that is going on right now within the media. I'm talking about, of course, the Big Five. So we're going to jump right in, folks, and this is it. So basically, I want to mention the fact that when I started this podcast a couple weeks ago, in the first edition, if you listen carefully to the first edition of the original Gangster Power Hour, I clearly stated, and it's on record, it's on YouTube, and I clearly stated that we are now in a middle of a culture warfare. I stated in my first podcast that we are now seeing on television a rating war like never seen before. So those two elements are very, very important for you to keep track, because what I'm saying out here is you're not tuning in to any kind of podcast. You're tuning in to the top podcast when it comes to multiculturalism and when it comes to politics and all that surround my book series, Multiculturalism, A Total Failure, Of course, I am the author. I am the exclusive artist of the official soundtrack for this particular book series. I am someone kind of a little bit, behind the scene as we speak right now. I'm not in right now the spotlight of the media because I will decide when it's going to be time for myself to be in the spotlight. So that means when I decide that it's time for me to jump in for some interview when it comes to my lawsuit against multiculturalism, Justin Trudeau, blackface, adoption, entrapment, when I'm going to be ready to make a press conference, of course, regarding my book series, my lawsuit, it will be on my time and I will make the decision. I hope that you guys will follow that up. That means I hope you guys will keep on tuning in to the podcast of the hour, of course, my podcast. And of course, I would like you guys to tune in to my YouTube channel, Exit. Don't forget that, very important out there. So it's very exciting when you're tuning to my podcast. It is exciting because you got all kind of related content that you can go through. Meanwhile, of course, we are seeing the most brutal interaction in U.S. history when it comes to power and when it comes to money and when it comes to Congress. It is a week that should be very, very, it should reflect who the United States are and what they will become, because keep in mind that the infrastructure bill that Mrs. Pelosi and her comrade, the Democratic Party, wants to, of course, pass, we're talking about trillions of dollars. So that means that money will be spread across the United States, but not equally. Keep that in mind. You're not going to see your fair share of that amount of money because the United States has an enormous debt. Keep that in mind. Now, what do you think that is? This is a lifeline saving. This is nothing to be excited about. This is nothing to be excited about. Let's be honest. This is a life saving. This is embarrassing for the United States. We all know. For those of you guys out here who listen to my podcast for obviously the good reason, not to try to pick up any stuff I could say that could be racist now. When you tune into my podcast, I hope you tune in to get some more information. That means I go beyond what most media reveal. And of course, I'm leading the way when it comes to multiculturalism. Now, let's put that aside and let's get back right away to what I was saying. All right? It is embarrassing for the United States, of course, in front of the world. People are not idiots. People know how much money the United States hold. They're in debts. And now they're going to pass a $1 trillion infrastructure bill that would only be, putting some salt in the wound. It won't do any kind of good. It will divide even more the country. It will create more corruption. And now, as we speak, as we look at what's going on, it is dividing the Democratic Party. Okay, now I want to catch up real quick on that segment because I want to jump in right away after the break, folks. We're going to focus, keep that in mind, it's going to be good. We're going to focus on what's going on with the Big Five. Their future is at risk. We're going to talk about Fox News. We're going to talk about CBS. We're going to talk about ABC, MSNBC, and CNN. And we're going to talk about who is attacking who right now, because it's hot in that bubble right now. If you follow the media, if you follow CNN, MSNBC, and all corporate news media in the United States, it is very hot. It is a hot bubble that we see. Okay, now let's get back to Pelosi. Before we take the break, we're going to talk about a little bit more the infrastructure bill. What did I say? I say something very important. I want you guys to keep that in mind. Right now, there's a division among the Democratic Party, and that's why they could not pass the bill that was due on the 30th of September, which was the last day of the fiscal year. All right, you following me up? Good. Now, what happened when you don't reach the deadline? Of course, there is consequences, but they're not going to talk about that because they're too happy. There's too much money out there. It's like being at the university and you're being let's say that you run a small business and you're being landed a couple grand. That's how the Democratic Party right now feel. They on cloud nine and they're trying to figure, okay, how are we going to spend the money? Where are we going to? They're like kids in a candy store. Now, of course, on the other side, the Republican Party are not too happy about that because they don't have access to the candy store anymore. So they're going to play the spoiler, right? They're going to play they're going to try to spoil the party. Now, very important. I want to talk about the psychology behind all that, right? The psychology is that ever since politics is a game of power in terms of who you convince and who you control, therefore, inside the Democratic Party right now, there's some people asking themselves, hey, wait a minute out here. Did I get my fair share? Hey, I did all the dirty works, and you're gonna screw me at the very end when the check is in the mail, you're gonna screw me. So that's how certain prominent figure, and I won't mention name, but you can imagine inside the Democratic Party right now, you can imagine on how certain very important figure are feeling when they look at Pelosi numbers and they don't add up for their communities, for their businesses, for, of course, their voters, their donors, etc. It is a total mess right now. In the next week, we'll see how it develops, but right now it is messy. From what I can understand from history, I think that the Democrats will eventually pass the bill, but for less money. And of course, some important people won't be happy. And we'll see what happens next with Sanders, with AOC, and we'll see what happens with Booker, Cory Booker, very important. I know Booker, you're not happy. You should have your fair share of what's going on. And I think that Mr. Booker, we're going to hear about Mr. Cory Booker in the future. Did I say that right? Did I say that right? We're going to hear a little bit more about Mr. Cory Booker in the next future week. All right. So the Big Five future is at risk. We're talking about MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, CBS, ABC. And after the break, we're going to get into it. This is ugly. This is incredible. It's a back and forth. It's more violent than Punch Out. But I'm telling you, this is it, folks. Okay, we're back, folks. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, before we left, I was talking about the Big Five. I was talking about the 5 major television networks in the United States right now that are in a epic battle over ratings, supremacy, and freedom of speech. Okay, of course we know that the right and the left doesn't like each other. Of course we know that the right and the left compete against each other. Of course we know that the right wants to know every single thing that the left is doing and vice versa. Now, the fact of the matter is, if you follow the news media, I'm talking about the 5 major networks in the United States. If you follow any kind of late night news or early morning show or 6 p.m. evening news, you're probably familiar with, I don't know, ABC standard. You're probably familiar with CBS standard. Or you're probably more familiar with MSNBC standard. What I want to lay out right now is the first layer of this very important segment of the original Gangster Power Hour. I want to talk about the fabric of those networks. What I mean by that is I want to talk about what they're made of. Because everything on this podcast is related to multiculturalism. And right now, we are in a multicultural warfare. Nobody can deny that. So, to establish what we're going to talk about in the next 15 minutes, I want to play, again, for those who haven't heard it, on my very first podcast, I want to play a soundbite of my first podcast, and after that, we're gonna come back, and I'm gonna play a soundbite of last week New Day interview with a very interesting guest. So this is a soundbite from the original Gangster Power Hour podcast, first edition, and we're gonna be right back. It's quite obvious of what's going on right now. We're now in the middle of cultural warfare, and anything goes. Lately, for those of you guys who haven't watched television for a while, you must ask yourself, what happened? Because television wasn't that way back then. Television was not a portal for a rating war like we are seeing right now, because it is a war over ratings, supremacy, and freedom of speech. Keep that in mind, very important. Okay, as you heard, I clearly stated that this is a culture war. I clearly stated that in my first podcast, right from the get-go. I said, and you heard it, and you heard it loud and clear. It could not be more clear and loud than that. That was not a suggestion. That was affirmative, and that was real, what I said. And I also mentioned that anything goes. So I want to bridge that right now, and I want you to listen to a soundbite from an interview that Breonna Taylor on CNN, host of course, the morning show New Day. I want you to listen to what Carl Bernstein had to say when it comes to multiculturalism in North America right now. Let's roll the soundbite, would you?
Joining us now to talk about this in the big picture is CNN political analyst Carl Bernstein. Carl, this is just one little data point on this big graph of democracy in peril this week, this month, this year. How are you seeing the trouble that the U.S. is in right now?
Well, democracy is in peril because the Republican Party has become the party of Trumpism and the party of disenfranchisement. The Republican Party has been taken over by this movement that is the most radical political movement of our lifetimes, that has come to power in any form in Washington, in our state legislatures. But I think what we really need to acknowledge here is that we are in a civil war in this country. We are in a cultural civil war such as we've never seen since 1860 to 1865, and that the radicalism of the Republican Party today is almost comparable to a secessionist movement in this country because of what the Republican Party now advocates.
Okay, so, if I was a prophet, let's say I was a prophet right now, I'll be a billionaire. Because a month ago, I just predicted what Mrs. Kalar guest on New Day told the entire CNN bubble and the rest of the world, of course, because CNN is worldwide, let's be honest. He said louder what I said, because I don't have the exposure that CNN has, but still, I'm on YouTube and it's on the record. So I'm happy about that. I wanted to share that with you to make you a little bit comfortable about who I am. I told you in the first podcast, I am the man behind this mass confusion, and I am also the author of the book series that will shock the world. So before I play those two clips to lay the ground on what I was about to talk, that is the fabric, of course, of those 5 networks, what they're made of. Now, this week, we're going to focus on 2 major players. We're going to focus on CNN and we're going to focus on Fox News. So we're going to lay the ground. We're going to look at what Fox News is made of, and we're going to look at what CNN is made of. And of course, We're gonna look at both forces, what they're capable of, who's attacking who, and most importantly, who's got the momentum right now in this unbelievable warfare. We're gonna be right back. We're gonna take a short break, folks, and we're gonna be right back. This is the original Gangster Power Hour podcast.
It was another day of incredibly mixed messaging from the Trump administration.
Gangster Power.
Congressman, is there any way we can get you to talk about January 6th? I do not do interviews with CNN.
Okay, now let's be honest. Why should you tune into the original Gangster Power Hour podcast every weekend? Because no one out there can afford to give you the right and proper information on how our not American multicultural system works from the inside out for free. No one can talk about multiculturalism like I do for free. Oh yeah, I will talk about my life, what I've been through, and much more. But more importantly, I will put under the microscope all the latest important news.
At least 59 now dead.
It is your right, and it is a privilege for me to keep you updated on what's going on in this world and beyond. Okay, we're back, folks, and of course I want to thank you for your warm welcoming. I do really appreciate it. I want to jump right into the fabric of Fox News. Very important. Okay, when we're talking about someone, it's hard sometimes to, mispronounce someone's name. It's Fox News, right? I don't know. The fabric of someone, even if you spell it wrong, cannot deter. What I mean by that, your fabric is who you are. All right? No matter if you wear a $500 t-shirt or a $2 t-shirt, you're the same guy inside. So we want to talk about the fabric of those 5 big television networks. And this week, we're going to focus on Fox News and CNN. So let's jump right in. Okay, channel was created by Australian-American media mogul Rupert Murdoch. So this is the first layer. We cannot go wrong. This is the soul, and this is who created Fox News. So we cannot deny that, right? This is the soul of Fox News. This is its founder. There was no, before Rupert Murdoch came to the United States from Australia, there was not a single media that could be compared to Fox in terms of conservative view. Now, the channel Fox News was launched on October 7, 1996 to approximately 17 million cable subscribers. 1996. Of course, Fox News grew extremely fast because of what they were, promoting, and that was a right conservative vision. We can go by the number here. As of September of 2018, approximately, I would say 90.2 90.8% of television subscribers receive Fox News. Now, that is important. That is a very important number out here. Okay. By September 2018, 90.8% of television subscribers received Fox News. All right? And by 2019, Fox News was the top rated cable network, averaging a 2.5 million viewers. I mean, it speaks volumes. We're talking about 1996. So if we look by the year 2000, mean 4 years later, they had already 17 million cable subscribers. 4 years we're talking about. Now, listen to that one. 18 years later, Fox News was able to have 90.8% of television subscribers' attention. That is very important. That's exactly what Fox News is made of. And that does not go well with CNN, of course, because they're taking TV rating share. All right? Now they're the new kid on the block. Okay, it goes well for a couple of years, but by 2000, Fox News has become a problem for CNN and the left. Because now they're reaching more viewers than, your bottom row television network. Now they're becoming at the major league of television network. So that means they're no longer viewed by CNN, MSNBC, ABC, and CBS as a sideshow. Now they're taking it seriously because of the fact that they generate revenue mostly based on publicity ad. That is very important. That means that in 18 years, all right, CNN had a great run during the Gulf War, right? They had they had probably the most highest ratings in American history. During that period, everybody was watching CNN. The War Report. All right, let's be honest. But keep in mind here that lurking in the back, Fox News was toe-to-toe with CNN. Now, what do you think it accumulates to? It boils. It boils inside some of the anchors in CNN to see so much success on the other side. It boils inside some CNN executive to see that much money being thrown around by the Murdoch. It boils inside for some it boils inside for a lot of people in CNN to see the success that Fox News was able to accomplish. I could go on and on, but that is a success story. Fox News Fabric is a success story from 1996 to 2018. They were able to gather the attention of 90% of the United States American public. They were able to gather 90.8% of all the United States television viewers. That is an accomplishment that is extremely extraordinaire. And of course, CNN won't talk about that, but I'm going to talk about it. And we're going to roll up, folks, because we got to keep on going. Okay, so these numbers were very important. Okay, now we're talking about the fabric. Well, Fox News has been described as practicing bias reporting in favor of the Republican Party. Okay, now, is that something surprising? I would not imagine so. Fox News is clearly on the Republican side, and we cannot deny that. We can say the same thing for CNN. CNN are clearly on the Democratic side, and they're like, I don't know, they really go along both. So, knowing that these two don't like each other, it's easy for anybody with a little bit of psychology that works in the creative department, of course, because all those major news network, cable news network, we're talking about the big five here, all those major players, they have a creative committee. They have a creative committee. That means that people gather idea and they pitch idea in terms of all kind of concept possible. For what? For more publicity, because that's how you generate money. The more companies advertise on your channel, the more money you make. And then the more money you make, of course, the salary goes along. So very important that Fox News is on the Republican side, and they generate a lot of money, and their anchors profit of that. You know, I mean, we're talking about Tucker Carlson. We're talking about Linda Ingram. We're talking about Sean Hannity. Those anchors at Fox News are very well paid, and that's what they're paid for. They pay to promote a right-wing ideology, of course, and they are here to promote the Republican Party agenda. So that means they're out there to inform the voters, the population, in which their direction to go and which direction not to go. Meaning that when the opposition is in power, now they're telling their voters, hey, wait a minute, think about it. They want to spend that much money on that bill that is not right, that is not okay, we should do something about it. Or, hey, they want to enforce mask mandate, but you got freedom, the right to say no. Now that's the duty of someone like Sean Hannity, someone like Linda Ingram, and someone like Tucker Carlson, to narrow those very important points, and that's their duty. And of course, nobody knows it, but they need to sell what they're talking about. They're like salesmen. When Tucker Carlson is on air, when Sean Hannity is on air, when Linda Ingram is on air, there's a lot of numbers that are being thrown around. You don't have any idea on how complex TV ratings is, on how complex it is to understand the factor, the level of sophistication when it comes to those TV programs. They're far more sophisticated in terms of being completely from top to bottom created to appeal to a certain audience. Now hear me out here. This is not your average soap opera. This is your main cable show. News anchors are like quarterback on the football field. So when you're listening to or watching a guy like Tucker Carlson, because we're talking about Fox News fabric. So when you're watching a guy like Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson is speaking about vaccine, Tucker Carlson is carrying on his back, is carrying everybody that believe otherwise. That means Tucker Carlson become the poster boy for the, hey, wait a minute here. Don't take the vaccine. Hey, wait a minute here. Don't put mask on your children. Now, Tucker Carlson does that not because he really believes it, because that's his job. And he's doing his job right now. Tucker Carlson's job is to convince and is to keep his audience happy, right? If Tucker Carlson wakes up one morning and goes on air and tell his viewers that CNN is so great that he's thinking of maybe subscribing, you understand? That would not really hit the right nerve among Fox viewers. You understand? So Tucker Carlson has to play a role. And Tucker Carlson's role is to play the underdog. Why? Because when you play the underdog, you don't have nothing to lose. So that's what Tucker Carlson persona, Tucker Carlson character, because of course Tucker Carlson in front of a camera, I would imagine, is not the same Tucker Carlson at home. Like me and you, when you go to work, whether you work in a chicken factory or whether you work in a chocolate factory, when you go back home, two different persons. You got to be concentrated and you got to do your work. That's business. That's how you make a living. So Tucker Carlson, like any worker out there, Linda Ingraham, like any worker out there, and Sean Hannity, like any worker out there, is doing a job. And their job is to convince their audience to come back. It's to promote the party line, and it's to make sure that their advertiser, those who pay their salaries, those who feed their family, and those who support Fox News by advertising, have their product well advertised. There's no word around it. That's their job, right? Okay, so this is the fabric of Fox News. Now, we're going to talk about CNN. What CNN is made of, because that's their nemesis. CNN is after Fox News one day, the other day Fox News is after CNN. So it's a very interesting war, folks. It is getting even more interesting by the day, because everything is more and more and more personal. People are laughing of other anchors and vice versa, and all kind of stories are being told. You know, some very interesting stories are being told about the beginning of some anchors. Some very interesting stories are being told about the future of some anchors, and some very interesting stories are being told about how some anchors, you know, tried to make it in different fields. So it is a very interesting world, because now anything goes. It's a back and forth, and it's brutal. And sometimes, you know, it is personal, and sometimes it is a vendetta. But it's war, and we're not gonna finish on that note, because I want you guys to listen to who's got the momentum, what CNN is made of, what is the fabric of CNN. I want you guys to listen to this week winner, the interview. Who's this week winner? I want you to listen to who's got the momentum right now, of course. And I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to talk later on about Tucker that roasted CNN dumbest host. Now, it's going to be very interesting in the next segment. So I hope you guys are happy so far. I hope it was entertaining. But keep in mind, this is only the beginning. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back. Okay, folks, we're back. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I really appreciate that one. Okay, I don't want to get lost here, because there's a lot left to talk about. And right now, we're talking about the future of the Big Five. I'm talking about CNN, and I'm talking about Fox News fabric, what they're made of. So before we went the break, we laid the ground, the foundation of that particular series. I'm going to make more podcasts on that subject alone. But this week, two elements we focus on. We focus on Fox News and CNN fabric. Now, it's time to lay the ground of CNN. So, for that, of course, we need to figure out what CNN is made of. It's not rocket science, right? If you want to know somebody, have you noticed that when you talk to somebody, right? Have you noticed something? Have you noticed that most of the time, one of the first questions that comes to your mind is, beside what your name or whatever is, what do you do in life? What's your job? What do you do? When you want to know somebody, it tells you a lot, because it tells you approximately what's the revenue of that person, of course. And it tells you a lot on, what he likes to do. So by knowing his job, not only you know how much he's making, which gives you an insight of his life, of course, but it lays the ground. So we're going to try to do the same thing, and we're going to ask and say, hey, CNN, beside your name, I know your name, CNN, but, what are you made of? Where do you come from? So we're going to check that out, all right? So if we look at CNN, it is based out of the United States, of course, right? And their headquarters is in Atlanta, Georgia. Very important. So if we look at the history, CNN was founded in 1980 by American media appropriator Ted Turner. Now, I know it's no surprise to anybody that knows the media, that knows the television world. Ted Turner is a big name. Is a big name because he was the biggest player on the chessboard not a long time ago. Ted Turner was the one that brought to the format that television is made of right now. That's Ted Turner that brought that 24-hour live, that very in-your-face media, very controversial. That is what Ted Turner brought up to television. And it was a 24-hour cable news. Upon its launch in 1980, CNN was the first television channel to provide 24 hours news coverage and was the first all-news television channel in the United States. Now, that is the foundation. Ted Turner, which is an incredible businessman, he is a very, very intelligent man. Although he made some very dumb mistake, but we could talk about the dumb mistake Ted Turner made. But regardless, Ted Turner, in my mind, Ted Turner is really what an entrepreneur represents. Anyhow, so we're looking at the foundation. So we're looking at 1980. So Fox News was founded in 1986. All right, 16 years after. So CNN is like the bigger brother. CNN is the bigger brother, and the CNN is big brother, and is looking at Fox and say, "Hey, I was there first. What are you doing, messing around with my viewers?" Do you understand where I'm coming from? Now, CNN is not happy. CNN has been there since 1980, and CNN was the first television channel to provide 24 hours news coverage, like I said. These are very important milestones. It makes the fabric. So, if we look at CNN, there's no dying in. They were the first. We cannot deny that. That's why they're the nemesis of Fox News. So we got two extreme, two sides that don't like each other, and we're gonna look a little bit more into CNN fabric in terms of what they have accomplished and what they are as of right now. So, as of September of 2018, CNN has 90.1 million television households as subscribers. 97.7% of households with cable. That is a statement that is ridiculous and tells a lot about CNN. So CNN basically reached out 90.1 million television households, which is incredible. Beside, of course, their YouTube channel and other spectrum that they got. Now, what's interesting out here is on how CNN on one side and on how Fox News the other side are comparable in terms of rapid success and in terms of growth if we look at the numbers. Now, let's see what CNN in terms of viewership fabric is made of. Now, we just talked about the foundation, Turner, 24 Hours, that's their niche. So they became what everybody else year after is trying to be. So that means they were in advance in terms of thinking. The network, CNN, is known for its dramatic live coverage of breaking news, some of which has drawn criticism as overly sensationalistic. Am I saying that correctly? But I did that on purpose just to be annoying. All right? And for its effort to be non-partisan, which have led to accusation of false balance. Okay, so we got our fabric here. CNN, champion of the 24 hours coverage, in-your-face television, breaking news coverage, and of course, their coverage of the Gulf War in the 1990s. Now, today, I want to talk about, in this war, Fox News, CNN, who's got the momentum. Now, from what I saw, from what I watch a lot of television, especially news program, and from what I see, from the Big Five, the leading program is from CNN, and the leading program is New Day, and they got the momentum right now. And I'm talking about Mrs. Brianna Kalar and Mr. John Bergman. Congratulations for your very well prepared program every morning, very well rounded. It is a program that is convenient for any ages. It is not too much controversial, well balanced. The hosts, John Berman and Brianna Kalar, are doing a fantastic job as maintaining a very strict amount of emotion. So that means they don't show any feeling toward certain things. They talk about news fairly, and they talk about it, and they're very professional. That's why. And the last thing I want to say is the last past couple clip that I saw from New Day were extremely well built and were in terms of psychology and the delivery. Mrs. Kalar and Mrs. Bergman both together on TV, not in the same studio sometimes from what I could understand. I don't know why, but whatever. Those two create a very dynamic kind of their show transpire an organic rhythm, meaning that it's not rush, it's not too slow, it's not too fast. It's the right tempo. And Mrs. Kalar, Brianna Kalar can be very, very mean. And she can hit hard. And when I'm talking about she can hit hard, we're gonna hear what Mrs. Brianna Kalar had to say in regards of Tucker Carlson from Fox News. So I want you to listen to that clip, and after that, we're gonna talk about it. Let's roll the clip.
When Tucker Carlson was arguing against the renaming of military bases named after Confederate generals and against the tearing down of Confederate statues, he said, quote, "A country is the sum total of its history, good and bad." He said, quote, "Eliminating the past leaves us unable to say who we are." Well, he's trying to eliminate the present. and he is spoon-feeding it to millions of hungry viewers who tune into his show. Healthy societies do not destroy their own history, he said last summer. But what he didn't cop to is that he is part of the illness, a propagandist, a liar, a parasite.
Okay, so basically that is a vicious attack on the part of Brianna. She knows it, and that must hurt. But I know that Tucker Carlson is a tough cookie, but still, it hurt. It gotta hurt. If anybody, especially a woman, calls you a parasite, I mean, it is a war. It is getting personal. So right now, we're gonna bridge this segment with someone that we don't talk about often, but we need to mention. The mention of the week, the runner-up of the week. So that means not the champion of this week, but it could have been him, and the runner-up of this week, War, American News War, and the winner of this week, American News War, runner-up. I'm talking about the runner-up right here. It's not the winner, it's the runner-up, and the runner-up in second place is Chris Hayes, all in the madness of opposing COVID vaccine. Go watch that video on YouTube. Very interesting. I think that Chris is getting more pumped up. I think that Chris in a couple weeks will be a force to be reckoned with in that war. I repeat that. I think that Chris Hayes, all in with Chris Hayes on MSNBC, will be a force to be reckoned with in the next couple weeks, because I think that Chris Hayes is just getting pumped up. Watch out, because from what I've seen, Chris Hayes is starting to do his rant standing, which is great. And this is something lacking in television. We really see anchors from top to bottom. So that means from head to toe. And Chris Hayes was intelligent enough to say, you know what? I'm going to talk about the vaccine, and I'm going to do it standing like I was talking to anybody in any theater. And it's great. It brings a level of being at home, close to Chris. Because when Chris is sitting and reading, it's like watching somebody reading. But when Chris is standing and talking to you, it's like having Chris in your living room talking to you. So that's why I give a mention of honor for his effort, Chris Hayes, this week, runner-up. So we just talk about who's got the momentum. New Day has got the momentum. They're on the roll. Their interviews are incredible, and they keep the momentum. Now, we need to close this podcast by presenting the winner of today's American News War. And this week's winner is New Day with his interview with Carl Bernstein on YouTube. It's called Carl Bernstein, U.S. is in a culture civil war. Brianna, Mr. John Bergman, I would like to congratulate you on behalf of the original Gangster Power Hour podcast for being the number one rating in terms of content when it comes to this American News War this week in October 2021. So who is gonna come up with the best week next week? We gotta watch out for Fox. I'm pretty sure that Tucker is going to be ready. I'm pretty sure that Linda is going to be ready. I'm looking forward to see Sean Hannity with something very explosive. I'm looking to see Sean Hannity to throw a touchdown, period. Next thing, watch out. I think that we got Rachel, good week coming up for Rachel. Morning Joe, that's a no-brainer. And of course, we got CBS, we got ABC. Next week, we're gonna look at those two dark shadow, but never underestimate ABC and CBS. These are not to be underestimated. Okay, so before we go, I want you to watch, if you get the time, go watch a clip on YouTube, Tucker Carlson roast CNN dumbest host. It's very appropriated in what I just talked about, the Big Five, the war. They are at war, they know it. YouTube is taking more and more space in terms of advertisement, and it hurts the major players. Now, the major players know that one thing. They cannot merge, but they can split and they can attack Fox News. And of course, by the end of that war, it's either the left that is standing or either the right. There can only be one winner. And this is it, folks, for this week. I'm gonna catch you up in the next episode. See you. Goodbye. Have a nice one.